So we're gonna go ahead and get started with the Finance Committee meeting. And we're just gonna go write down the agenda packet. And so we'll be starting with Pat with the June revenue versus expenditure report and go right into the, why does it say August? Oh, August, yeah, we are in October now. August revenue versus expenditure report.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Tonight you have the June revenue expenditure report. That's the end of fiscal year 2021. This is an unaudited statement. As you can see, we had a $27 million surplus at year end. The major driver of this surplus was a school transportation savings for approximately 14.3 million. There's several other items that make up that surplus, and I think it might make sense to send this report to committee and maybe have a meeting specifically to discuss and answer any questions. There's really a lot to talk about in this report, so that would be my suggestion.
Sure, we can do that, Pat.
Thank you very much.
And did you want to go right into the August revenue versus expenditure report?
Sure. The August revenue expenditure report, really not much has changed since July, which I presented last month. The big thing is the pension payment we made on July 1st, which is showing the large variance with our expenditures, approximately $46 million ahead of revenue at this point. Also, we did come up with a net school spending carryover amount that was agreed upon between the city and the school department, and that is going to be $15.8 million, which is an increase of $1 million over last year's carryover. And that money has been appropriated in the school budget and it's available for them to expend.
Thank you, Pat. Are there any questions regarding that report? I see Councilor Davila, who is also part of the Finance Committee, has joined us as well. Hi, Councilor.
Hello.
So, no?
I'm all set. I'm all
Okay.
set.
All righty, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Duggan Park LWCF grant for $750,000.
Hi, Councilor Whitfield, Pat Sullivan.
Hi,
We're very
Pat.
proud. Hi, how are you? We're very proud that we received this federal grant for Duggan. It will assist us in improving the fields at Duggan Park.
So we've been working on the fields for a little while now. Will this complete it, or this is just another step in
This
the
is
process?
This would be a phase in the process.
Phase in the process,
do-
okay.
To do the main field, it's over a few $1 million to do the main field. So this will do the baseball field, community garden, and some walking paths.
Okay, thank you, Pat. I didn't see that Councilor Hurst joined us, so we'll welcome Councilor Hurst as well, and he has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pat, significant amount of CDBG funding being used for this. Is that customary?
Yes, we always match our CDBG with our federal or state grant. So that's actually the normal grant amount. We use two $250,000 allotments from CDBG to match our either state or federal grants.
Okay, thank you.
Just to piggyback off of that, was this allotment on the CDBG report? Because I don't know that I recall seeing it in the breakdown of where CDBG funds are spent.
We apply every March for this funding.
Okay. I guess I will have to double check. But I think it's a great project nonetheless, and glad that we're getting that amount of money to complete the project. Any other questions from councilors?
No questions.
Seeing none, we'll move to the next item. FY22 Greater Springfield Senior Services Grant, $87,328 in-kind match required.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield, it's Sandy Federico from Elder Affairs. We're just requesting this grant set up that fund. This grant will fund our outreach division as part of Elder Affairs. It is the first year of a 3-year grant cycle that's renewable after each year.
And is it a level amount, Sandy? About the same?
Yes, it is. Yes.
All right, well, outreach is great for our seniors. Any questions from council?
No,
All
thanks.
right. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next item is the FY 22 Municipal Road Safety Grant for $49,999.79.
Thank you, Counselor. This grant is from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security from the state to our police department. And this is just under $50,000, and it will fund 5 different types of traffic enforcement mobilizations.
5 traffic enforcement mobilizations.
5 different types. I don't know if they're 5 significant. I don't know if they're 5 times or 5 types, but there's 5 types. There's impaired driving, distracted driving, click it or ticket, speed enforcement, and there's winter and summer impaired driving.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, seeing none.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Oh,
just a
I'm
quick,
sorry. Counselor, can you please use your hand or raise it so that I don't skip you or
Yeah,
pass
I
you?
couldn't, let me see, I
Thank
couldn't
you.
find it on time. There we go. Okay, got it. Lindsay, good evening. I'm just wondering, can any of these funds be used for the upcoming bright nights relating to traffic? I know or I look at the traffic issues in bright nights, and we're getting a lot of complaints regarding traffic on bright nights. Particularly people who are not able to get into the Causey Corner area. Significant amounts of complaint recently and some serious concerns. So I realize you just said this could be used for specific things, but I don't know if the city can augment the traffic out there to help alleviate some of the traffic concerns related to bright nights.
I don't know about that, Councilor Davila, but I do know that this specific grant wouldn't cover any kind of traffic enforcement for the bright nights.
Yeah, Lindsay, if I may add, this is simply for the state campaign, like the click it or ticket events that you see, is to enhance police activity to make sure that we're looking for distracted drivers, drinking and driving, that sort of thing.
Got you. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Counselor Davila. And you can lower your hand now. Because they didn't get, I'm not the host yet, so I can't do it. Thank you. We got various donations to the Parks Department, $44,331.94. And that kind of speaks for itself, various donations.
Yeah, is Pat Sullivan still here or no? If not, I can speak to those. I don't see him here.
I don't see him anymore.
All right, let's see. Okay, so yes, $44,000. It's various individuals. There is some donations with no specific use, some specifically for plaques within the park, some specifically for benches within the park, and one specifically for the Camp Star Lodge within the park.
Does it say which park?
Forest Park.
Forest Park?
Sorry. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Sorry about
Any
that,
questions?
councilors. I've got a bad connection tonight with the rain, I
That's
think.
okay. Lindsay did an excellent job in your absence, Pat. Thank you. Any questions from counselors? All right, seeing none. Parks Department donation of $36,600, and I just want to recognize Counselor Letterman that has joined us.
Thank you.
Pat, floor is yours. Unless he has a bad connection again. Lindsay, can you take this one as well? For the 36?
Sorry. Yep. Okay, so $36,000. This donation is split into two portions. One is $30,000 to be used towards Atwater Park improvements, and 6,600 will be for 3 curved benches around a tiered fountain, also in Atwater Park.
Counselor Fenton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to explain, this was a fundraising campaign that the neighborhood did to complete the funding for a fountain that was CPC, was a CPC sponsored project from 2 years ago that we just didn't get enough money from community preservation to finish it. So this $30,000 donation plus the benches, that's what it's going to be used for.
Fantastic. Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, there's a COPS Anti-Heroin Task Force Program Grant, 20,000.
Thank you, Counselor. This is $20,000, which is a pass-through through the state police. It's a task force between the Springfield Police Department and the state police, $20,000. It's new to the department, and it is for the anti-heroin task force.
Do you know if it's a suppression grant?
Let me see, just give me a second. Targeting, investigating, and prosecuting individuals involved in the sale, distribution, and or trafficking of heroin, fentanyl, opiates, and or opioids.
Yeah, so suppression. Does it target specific neighborhoods?
I don't have any of that information.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Letterman?
Thank you, Counselor Whitfield. Yeah, I was hoping to understand a little bit more about what this task force does and specifically how the funds will be utilized. Do we have a representative from the police department here?
We don't, because the amount is $20,000. We don't have anyone here.
That's fair. All right. Well, I think I do have those same questions, so I would appreciate the opportunity to be able to get those answered.
Yeah, so I don't know if we can get anybody to the meeting. If not, we're probably gonna ask the Sinista Committee to get more details behind the funding. Counselor Hurst?
Yeah, no, I agree with both the two of you. I also wanted to know who was included in this task force, and especially if it's in conjunction with the state police. I'd just like to know a little bit more about what the role of this heroin task force is, as I've not heard of this before in the past.
Counselor Davila?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I concur. I think particularly since my understanding is that we no longer have a anti-drug unit, a vice unit that was converted to the gun unit. So I just wonder how that will fit into the current deployment of the police department. So definitely we need a representative to explain this more thoroughly. If nobody can be there for the meeting tonight to explain this, then we'll be more than glad to send this to committee and until further explanations given.
Thank you, Counselor Davila and Counselor Letterman and Counselor Hurst for your comments. Let's see. The TJ O'Connor donations for $1,955.02.
This is the total of 42 separate donations, the most substantial, which was $465. No
Thank
specific.
you. Any questions?
No questions.
All right. Order approving CPC recommendation to fund the East Springfield Library outdoor reading room.
Mike, are you still on?
Yeah, Counselor Fenton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask that this one stay in committee. I'm working with the law department on the deed restriction, and Kathy Breck and I she needs some more time.
Okay, perfect. We will keep that in committee. Order approving CPC recommendation.
Counselor Whitfield, I'm on if you had any questions.
All right, Pat, thank you. We may. where was I? Hold on. Order 11, approving CPC recommendations to fund the Hotel Rainville and Newport Terrace Apartments. And Karen, I did give you the ability to share your screen. Can you see it, Sharon? Because we can't see it yet. All right.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. And who's going to speak to this item?
Well, let me start off. This is Bob McCarroll with the Community Preservation Committee. So this is a recommendation that we made of $250,000 going toward this project, which is a $15 million project involving the rehabilitation of 4 buildings on Byer Street, which are currently affordable housing and will continue as affordable housing. The CPA component is only a small percentage of the overall cost, and I know that there are several people here from Wayfinders who can then elaborate should the council have any questions.
So this was put into committee by, I think Councilor Davila had the most questions at the time. So Councilor, did you want to speak?
Yeah, on this particular issue, I was just like Wayfinders. Do we have anybody from Wayfinders here?
Yeah. Good afternoon, Councilor. This
Good
is
afternoon,
Keith
sir.
Perry,
Good afternoon,
President of
Keith.
Wayfinders.
Good afternoon. Yes, last time I was just talking, and we're talking this being a great project, and with the looming housing crisis that we have here in Springfield and in the region. But I was just wondering also, since I believe you guys have been getting funds in the past and not a significant amount of money. How much is this for, by the way, Karen?
250,000.
250,000. So I was just wondering, in terms of prevailing wage jobs being used for this project, saying that it's public money.
And before that, we just want to welcome you and thank you for coming. As the CEO of Wayfinders, Mr. Ferry, thank you very much for joining us.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for your question, Councilor Davila. This project is not prevailing wage. The other funding sources are the majority of the funding for the project don't require prevailing wage, and not applying for those funding sources, it would likely make us be a challenge to get those funding sources because it may make our budget uncompetitive for the competitive process.
No, I get that, Mr. Ferry, and I fully realize that it's not required on the ordinance, but something maybe we should look at. However, that doesn't necessarily keep you from doing so. And I'm just wondering, since you, it is my understanding that you have gotten in the past money, if I'm mistaken, please correct me. But again, I'm encouraging you to keep that in mind. I mean, let's not forget, this money is public money coming from the taxpayer's pocket. And in my opinion, prevailing wage should strongly be considered. It's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. I know in the last meeting, we spoke extensively about maybe creating some sort of criteria, which is something that maybe we should look at as a body. But no, I'm aware you're not required to do so, sir. But again, it doesn't keep you from even doing that in this project or future projects. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and just to clarify here, this is the first time that Wayfinders have received CPA recommendations for money.
Okay, that's good to hear. But still, my comments still stand because I know there has been other entities that have received $300,000 in the past. But either way, my bigger point is about prevailing wage. But I think it's a worthy project. It's an important project. I just wanted to bring up the important point of ensuring that we have jobs here locally and not being outsourced from everywhere else. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Ramos?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you again for the representatives of Wayfinders for attending this meeting and bringing us additional information regarding this specific project. As I mentioned at the original meeting, my concern around this issue is wage theft. We have discussed this in the past. We currently have a wage theft ordinance on the books. We have a responsible employer ordinance, a TIF ordinance, and an HTIF ordinance, all which refer to some restrictions or requirements relative to companies and contractors that receive these tax incentives or public funding. So the issue here is that CPA is not covered under any of those ordinances that I just mentioned. CPA funds currently do not have any requirements or any sort of requirements to prevent wage theft for these projects, these proposals that are receiving taxpayer funding. Currently, the responsible employer ordinance has a threshold of $500,000, which was changed from the $250,000 that it was previously, and so it does not apply to this particular project. However, my intent in sending this to committee was to have a conversation with the developer around the need for wage theft language in their contract. I raised some concerns about the chosen contractor. Had a good conversation with the developer and wanted to turn it over to him or to anyone from Wayfinders that wants to speak on it. But apparently they are considering putting some sort of wage theft language into the contract, which I believe would be very helpful, would suffice, I think, for my concerns. But moving forward, as my colleague, Councilor Davila mentioned, we do have to have a larger conversation around, whether we should have some sort of policy in writing or whether the CPA committee itself should consider having something in writing for projects, proposals in the future that receive a significant amount of money from taxpayers to prevent wage theft in these projects. So want to turn it over to Wayfinders and see if we have a solution for moving forward. And, I'm curious to hear from them.
Thank you, Councilor Ramos. Yes, we have taken the concern about wage theft very seriously here and are going to be putting in several provisions into the contract and requirements for a contractor, including needing to both train workers on site about wage theft, keeping a logbook on site so people can log in and out, also providing signage and phone numbers for people to call if they feel like they are subject to wage theft, so that employees can, workers on site can call independently to report claims. And so we will not only be including that, we will be including that in our contract. We don't have a contract yet with the contractor, but we will be including that with the contractor's contract and going into this project and future projects for that matter, because we, again, feel like this is a serious item that we do not want to see happen on our sites.
And that is very encouraging to hear. As I mentioned before, Wayfinders, the purpose and your mission statement and your purpose in our community, right, is to help people who are in need, who are disadvantaged, et cetera. And it's sort of counterintuitive to hire a contractor that's going to do the opposite and take advantage of people and put them in a situation where they're going to need your services, right? And so we want to make sure that that a responsible organization is working with responsible contractors and responsible employers. And that was the purpose, again, of sending this to committee. And so I thank you for that. We also have, Madam Chair, Lisa Clausen from the Carpenters Union on this call. And they've been doing some great work around wage theft and helped us with the wage theft ordinance itself. So I don't know if she has anything to add around this, but I do encourage wayfinders to work together with the trades in order to come up with some language that is going to be enforceable, right? And give them the teeth that it needs. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Counselor.
I will allow Lisa to speak after Counselor Hurst. Counselor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just, along those same lines of Counselor Ramos, the ordinance also speaks to minority hiring, the hiring of women, as well as the hiring of veterans and city residents. So I would love, if you included some sort of stipulations with the contractor that also speak to that as well. I know we're having this conversation after the fact, and hopefully we can work with the CPA committee and the rest of our colleagues on the council to get this language into those future applications. But I'd love for you to speak to your intent on potentially requiring the contractor to hire folks of color as well as residents of the city of Springfield.
There will be provisions in the contract around minority and women-owned business enterprises as part of the contract. We will be looking to sort of see best efforts around hiring local residents for as well.
Much appreciated. And, we also want to strongly think about getting around the language of best efforts that has failed us numerous times in the past. So just a recommendation, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor Hurst. Lisa, and then Counselor Gomez.
Yes.
Lisa Clausen first, Counselor, and then I'll circle right back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, counselors. We've shared wayfinders some of the language that we recommend on best practices to prevent wage theft, and appreciate hearing that a number of those components will be adopted, and some of the pieces that Mr. Ferry mentioned are best practices in terms of having log in, log out, and signage. Certainly the two other key components are making sure any subcontracting is signed off by the developer. Sometimes it's appropriate on a project, and sometimes it's the way to misclassify workers. And then the other piece that we found to be really useful is to have some sort of financial repercussions if it were to occur. And so I recommend wayfinders doing that. We have had some problems, contractor, with having subs that have engaged in wage theft in West Springfield project and in the Sunderland project. So appreciate that these measures are being put in. Thank you. And I guess one other last thing to Councillor Hurst's point, the WBE and MBE on the ownership side is really important, but diversity on the workforce side is also equally important to create opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. Councillor Gomez?
Yes, on the comments of Councillor Hurst and Councillor Ramos concerning the hiring of local individuals, especially veterans, where I've seen in the past, these contractors already bring individuals that they are working with, and then especially I saw with NGM, they had a percentage of veterans to hire in the city, but these contractors already have brought their own individuals, and we had very little veterans being hired. So I would like to see that the veterans that they hire are from the city and they do not come with the contractors. Very important for us veterans to ensure that we get that opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Gomez. My question is, like, once the projects start, hold on, baby. Once the projects start, what accountability tools do we even have to make sure that these things are happening? Because are these private buildings or they're not city owned? So what accountability do we have? Councilor Ramos, if you can answer that, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, the frustrating part is that again, this doesn't fall under any ordinance that we currently have in the books, and because it is and so because we don't have that, then we can't essentially we can't our compliance officer does not have any oversight over these which is why it's important that we rely on the language that is going to be put into the contract by the developer. If this developer does put that language that they described into the contract and have some sort of a clawback or a financial penalty, which was mentioned by Lisa Clausen, then that gives the developer, the contractor, an incentive to actually follow those rules, regulations that they have in the contract. Otherwise, there'll be a financial penalty associated with that. And so because we don't have oversight, that's why it's important to have that add that into the contract. And then the developer themselves can have oversight over that.
Thank you for clarifying that, Counselor. And is that what we plan to do, Mr. Ferry?
Yes, we will work penalty language into the contract.
Thank you. Counselor Ramos?
Yeah, just one more quick thing, Madam Chair. And again, this is why it's important to put this into a policy. If there is a way, and I am currently exploring different ways that we can do this, if there is a way for us to do similar to what Northampton did, which is to have some language for the Community Preservation Committee to require petitioners to have waste theft language into their contract, then there will be essentially a clawback from the CPC, right? So in order to receive, for example, this $300,000 from the CPC, you have to prove that or there have to be no waste theft violations on your job. If there is, then you will not receive $300,000 from CPC or for CPA funds. So again, that would be the authority that we would have, which is again why it's important to moving forward that we have some sort of an ordinance or a policy in place from the CPA.
Thank you, Councilor Ramos. I just wanted to add that I know it might seem like we're picking on wayfinders, but we're not. It's just something that we don't presently have in place, and that is something that the councilors have thought about. And we thank them for bringing it up because we want to make sure that we benefit the city of Springfield most because it is a Springfield project. And so I just wanted to make sure that you all know that we think the project's great and you're doing a wonderful job in the community in the city of Springfield. And we're just trying to work through it and figure out what to do going forward. So I just wanted to say that. Councilor Allen?
Thanks, thanks, Madam Chair. My question is just along the lines of, are we going to try to do that this year? And for these projects, put this legislation in, or there's changes on wage theft? I don't know how long that's going to take. Maybe it's simple. Maybe it takes 3 months. I don't know. And is that the intention to not pass these this year, or is the intention to pass them in the form they're in and work on a better, longer range strategy for CPA projects vis-a-vis the REO? Anybody can answer that. I'm just trying to follow along where we are with it because I could see logic in either one.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I don't have any intention of holding up any of the proposals. I think that the representatives from Wayfinders, they have been very cooperative and they voluntarily agreed to adopt the language that we recommended into the contract. The issue becomes when a developer is uncooperative and does not agree to put this into a contract, and so that's why we have to put this into a policy. As you all know, I have 3 months left on the city council, so I would love to get something done before my term expires. So I do intend to put something before the council before I leave at the end of the year.
Thank you, Councilor Ramos. We appreciate that. I also think that the organizations should kind of be grandfathered in and you know, not held up because we didn't think of this sooner. But I do agree that something needs to be put in place as soon as possible. Karen?
Just real quickly, just to clarify that the grant is for 250,000, not 300,000. And the highest amount of a grant that the CPA grants is 250. So it wouldn't go over that amount. That's all.
Thank you, Karen, for the clarification. Councilor Letterman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm certainly supportive of developing a policy in the future. And I think that it's excellent that Wayfinders has voluntarily committed in this cycle. So I'm very comfortable with that. The only question I had for Councilor Ramos, who I appreciate taking the lead in these conversations, is we sent another item of equal value, similar project to committee as well. I think it's next on the agenda. Were you able to connect with that developer as well?
I was not, and I'm hopeful that they will be cooperative as well. But I have not had any conversations with the other developer.
Great. Yeah, I just think it's important that we share, you know, the same information and resources with them too, so they can hopefully follow the lead of Wayfinders. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions, comments?
Well, let me jump in here. This is Bob McCarroll. It would be helpful if the council gives us some direction in, for example, what's the threshold that's in your mind that it should trigger for us? You know, the vast majority of our grants go to municipal departments that already fall evidently under existing ordinances. And many of the CPA grants are, you know, 50,000, 100,000. Some do go up to 250,000. So I would not want to have something where the committee adopts a policy only to find out that when we come back to the council, you feel it's the wrong policy. So it would be helpful to get some guidance on this, especially on what's the trigger threshold of CPA money going into a project that would trigger anti-theft.
Councilor Williams, Council President Williams hasn't spoke, Councilor Ramos, so if you would just let him get his comments out and then I'll circle right back to you.
Thank you, Committee Chairwoman. It's good to see some of my friends from Wayfinders. Michelle, nice to see you as well. So I think this is just something to keep in mind as we move forward kind of through this issue and thinking about like the policies or, you know, kind of what the developer petitioner themselves should be having reflected in their contracts. You know, a part to that is also making sure the organizations that come through this bucket of money through CPA, they have the infrastructure to alert them to anti-wage theft issues as well. So, you know, there's just a lot to consider in that. And, you know, Councilor Ramos, I would love to have this issue finalized before you leave for sure. I think it's, you know, it will be a trailblazer of legislation, but I think there's different components that are certainly going to require input from the business community as well to some degree.
Thank you, Council President. Councilor Ramos?
Yes, and so thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to answer Bob's question, there's a CPA meeting tomorrow, correct? And so it was my intention to attend that meeting to share some of that information with the committee. There is precedent for that, for this type of language, the CPA in Northampton. And so, you know, I'll be sharing those, I'll be sharing some of that information tomorrow with the committee. But just in terms of today, just to make it clear, it is not my intention to hold up any of these projects. It was the intent to begin the conversation about creating a policy around waste stuff for CPA funds, and also getting a commitment from each of these developers that they will take waste stuff seriously and that they will consider putting some waste stuff language into the contract. If we can get a commitment from all of these, then I intend to support them all. But I'm hopeful that all of them will commit to having waste stuff language in their contracts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hurst?
I think I'm all set, Madam Chair.
All right. Any other questions or comments regarding this item? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to Order 12, order approving CPC recommendation to fund the historic renovation to 2612 Main Street. Bob?
All right, thank you, Counselor. This is a 12-unit early 20th century apartment building on the corner of Main Street and Arch Street in the Memorial Square neighborhood. It has been long vacant and has been tax foreclosed. I believe the city put it out for RFP several years ago, but the developer who received it did not perform, and it went out in the past year or so and was awarded to a new developer. They are proposing to renovate the 12-unit building. It's about a $3.5 million project. They're asking for $250,000 of CPA money, and at least in their application, in their budget, they're also talking about some kind of HDIP assistance. I'm not sure if there's anyone here tonight, though, from representing that applicant.
Is there anyone here to speak to this item?
Mr. Hanush was here. Unless he left.
Maybe left, so I guess, Counselor Ramos?
Madam Chair, yes. So everything that was said about the previous item also applies to this one. I think one of the things that is different is that they are going to be seeking an HDIP, which would be covered under our HDIP ordinance, which calls for waste stuff language as well as hiring requirements similar to those that are in the responsible employer ordinance, or actually identical to those that are in the responsible employer ordinance. So we will get another bite at the apple, so to speak, on this one, because it will be covered under the HDIP ordinance. But again, I would love to hear from the developer tonight about his commitment to enforcing waste theft in this project. And I know that he spoke on the hiring of women and minorities and contractors, Black and brown contractors at the last meeting. I would love to hear his commitment on waste theft as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Letterman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually put my hand down. I was just going to make the same point about the HDIP. So I agree. I think we should ask them about their commitment this evening in the general meeting, but assuming they'll come under the previously written ordinance, that should cover a lot of it as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Moving right along. We have transfer of stabilization reserves to the law department settlement account for $5 million.
Thank you, Counselor. Ed Pakula, City Solicitor. As you know, we have been involved with ongoing settlement discussions with the Department of Justice. We've also been involved with a lot of pending or threatened litigation involving civil rights matters alleging police misconduct. We believe that a resolution of the DOJ case can occur in the near future. And as part of the city's legal strategy, the law department would like to resolve some of the most significant cases where we're facing exposure. Some of those cases were actually part of the DOJ case. Many of them are not, but they're ones where we feel we can try to settle now to save dollars in the future as we go forward. And so we've been doing a lot of analysis, and we feel we can prevent some future liability down the road. We believe this protection will save money now compared to going forward with the jury cases. So in that respect, we're looking for this pool of money to draw from. We have many cases that we've looked at. We've looked at exposure being far greater than 5 million. And so that's the basis of the request, to try to save money compared to what we would be facing as we go forward, and to do so now. It's also part of a strategy to sort of turn the page, if you will, for the city as a whole, to get a clean slate. Once we have a settlement with the DOJ settlement, with the DOJ, the settlement in and of itself will not protect us from liability, but the improvements that we put in place based on accountability, based on more supervision, based on more training, those, as they get implemented, will protect the city from liability, and we should have a lot less cases. So we're looking to turn the page. We're looking to have a clean slate, and we'd like to do it all sort of contemporaneously as we're moving forward. So that's the basis of this request, and I'll be happy to answer questions, but keeping in mind it's part of a legal strategy, and this is stuff that we talked about in executive session. And you know, if you do have those types of questions, they're best that we have a future executive sessions to go over them.
So I'm not gonna ask specific case questions. I just wanted to clarify, because you said that this is for future cases, also for training and those other things, or is this just for?
No, this is existing cases where we're facing exposure. We've got quite a list, and it's gonna hopefully clear the decks. And as I said, it'll put a new posture for the city in putting the misconduct liability behind us as we implement all these new reforms.
So you know, my comments are gonna be the same. You already know how I feel. It is our fiduciary responsibility to decrease the liability on the taxpayers in the city of Springfield. And so I do believe that, you know, this transfer is the right thing to do, to decrease the liability for the taxpayers of the city of Springfield. However, we said that we were gonna clear the slate when we transferred $6 million the last time, and we were gonna have a clean slate. And here we are again, trying to clean the slate. And so are we gonna try to clean the slate next year? More has to be done when it comes to disciplinary actions for the officers that are committing these offenses, on whether it's the first time or the 10th time. We have to do something to mitigate them from doing these things. Also, we're putting a lot of funding behind officers that, to me, are doing some criminal acts, right? These are, even though they're not, maybe not charged, we're paying substantial amount of money for the acts that they are doing, yet we're not putting the same type of funding and resources to gun violence elimination happening in the city of Springfield. We're paying taxes, and when I say we, because I am a homeowner and a taxpayer in the city of Springfield, and so when I pay my taxes, I want some of those funds to go directly to the people that need it most. And so we always hear officers are here to serve and protect, and I truly believe in my heart, the majority of them are doing just that. They have goodwill, they are acting in faith, and they're in good faith. They're doing their best, but we do have like 1%, maybe 2% that are not. They cannot keep being let off the hook. Something has have to happen with these officers that keep committing these offenses. We can't keep paying for what they're doing and then nothing is gonna happen, no reprimands is happening. I can't even say that they're not, but I've seen a list and there are some repeat offenders on there. And so we need to figure out how we're going to handle that, but also how we're going to take some of the free cash and give it directly to the community to help with some of the issues that's going on in the community. So I am glad that the heroin task force is out here doing something, but do I want them just to suppress and arrest? No, I don't. I want them to go beyond that and do some talking to the community and do some training in the community and help with Narcan and all these other things that we can do outside of suppressing and arresting. I want to see more of this free cash going to helping our community. We have homelessness, we have opioid issues, we have mental health issues, we have a lot of issues that we could be using this free cash for instead of paying charges for wrongful lawsuits that officers are doing. So I just want to put that out there again. I hope that this is a conversation that the Finance Department administration will have with the mayor, because these are some of the things that we should be doing for our city residents besides paying for police misconduct.
Thank you. Counselor.
Any other questions or comments from Counselor Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Ed, I just had a quick question for you. Well, first, I'll say this. Since my time on the council, I certainly feel like this is probably the worst vote to take. And the reason is because, of course, you're dealing with a system that we know has needed change for quite some time. And the council certainly stood firm and stood bold on having a police commission, and deep structural change such as that will help with issues like this over the long term, I would like to believe. So I certainly think, to the chairwoman's point, there needs to be changes, deep, equitable, around equity, around inclusion, around the culture itself. Those changes are long overdue. And I would like to think the folks on this council have been leading the way in calling for those changes for sure. Just a quick question I had for you, and it kind of relates to the question I had when we talked about this, is $5 million, I get it from the top, might settle, the majority of the cases, if not all of them. But let's just say, it's 2 million or 3 million that it takes. What happens with the rest? And let me also ask, if the council came in at a little bit lower, does that hurt your bottom line?
Yeah, let me answer those separately. First, we've never done anything like this where we asked for a pool of money to settle cases that weren't already settled. Anytime we've come before you in the past, it was to request a transfer for a case that was already settled. None of these cases are settled so far. The last big one we had was in the Shand case that involved $27 million judgment on a jury verdict. As I said, we settled that for $6.5 million. But this is the first time where we're asking for a pool of money. As you know, typically our budget is well under $200,000 a year. And that is designed so that we can come before you to request the money. Here, we're looking to have more of a wholesale resolution of cases, and we want to show the courts that we are putting our best foot forward, that we're serious about settlement. Many times the judges get concerned with the fact that we do not have authority, that we have so little in our budget. So this is a concerted effort to try something new. We're hoping that it's going to pay dividends for us in many ways. Now, as to the actual amount, Again, we put 5 million and we put a lot of thought into that number because we reviewed some of the cases with the highest exposure. And I can tell you it's a lot more than 5 million. The effort that we've gone into calculating that number was not based on science, but it was the same sort of educated guesses and that insurance companies do. We've gone through a similar process to come up with that number. If we have a smaller amount of money, chances are we will be back before you seeking more money. So we're looking to do it all in one fell sweep if we can, to get as many as we can. Obviously, if we don't spend all that money, it'll be coming back to you. But the amount is not just an arbitrary amount. There's logic behind it. There's analysis behind it from legal reasoning, trying to gauge our risk and the exposure that we have and to try to minimize the city's liability. We would very much like to keep it at the 5 million. Obviously, that is all in your corner to make that ultimate decision. That's why we're here. You should know that the amount would be coming from reserves. It's not coming from free cash, so that it would be a requirement that there be 9 votes for this.
Okay, thank you, Attorney.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Attorney Pakula. Did you say something, Counselor?
I did. My apologies. I wasn't able to get my hand fast enough. My hand up fast enough. Solicitor, good evening, sir. Just a quick question. I hear your presentation. I hear your arguments, but I'm just going to be as plain as I can be. I understand, but I don't understand at the same time. I realize that this is going to hopefully save us money down the end. And just to put things into perspective, it is my belief that if we approve this fiscal year, it will be roughly about $11 million that will be allocated towards police misconduct. 5 million now and other amounts in the past. That's a lot of money. And so although I appreciate the efforts and the strategy, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm mistaken, that one, you're asking us to have faith in what's coming down the pipe in terms of reforms for the police department, some of which I believe you say that you cannot share at this point. But what about the cases that are pending? I'm sure that you got other lawsuits on your desk right now that we don't even know about.
That's the whole purpose of this money. This isn't for future lawsuits. That's for the current cases. We're expecting that as we get closer to a settlement with DOJ, and I believe we can do that, we will then be able to put the reforms in place so there won't be future cases. Once we have better trained officers, better supervised officers, more accountability, a better disciplinary system, that should reduce the number of cases and it should help protect us. But as we sit here now, we're facing a large amount of potential liability, and that liability is not going to go away simply by having a settlement. Instead, these cases have the potential of haunting us as we're trying to put our best foot forward.
I get that, Solicitor, but my point is that from the moment that we appoint these transfers and for the moment that those new changes are implemented, it's going to take time. And I'm sure there will be new lawsuits filed in the future. It's just a matter of facts. How is that going to make it better in the future for the potential lawsuits? How is that going to help us with future lawsuits?
Well, I don't think that you have to do a lot of research to realize there's quite a few cases that have been filed recently that there's a lot of jumping on the bandwagon. that is going to be gone once we have a settlement. The settlement with DOJ has deadlines to implement these. They're not long deadlines. As I said, we'll get close and we'll review that. We'll come before the council and show you all of that. And so if someone's got a case now, they should be bringing it now. If they wait, they're liable to miss the boat. And that's the atmosphere we're trying to create.
And if I could just add one thing on the timing issue, I hear your concerns, Counselor, and these are all pending cases, and some of them have been pending since 2015, but most of them have been filed in 2017, 2018. And one of the reasons why they're sort of at this critical mass right now is because COVID artificially suppressed the pace of civil lawsuits. And, you know, I was joking with my staff that it feels like every one of our cases, the attorneys on the other side came out of their comas at once because we're just buried with paperwork. But all of these cases are pending to trial in the next 6 to 8 months. We are not talking about things that, oh, we have plenty of time to evaluate and try to get these settled. And so working with Ed, when we started this process, and I am the deputy who's in charge of the litigation division, and I do a lot of the federal litigation myself, Ed asked me to critically look at the pending police misconduct cases and evaluate what ones have the greatest risk and what ones we're facing imminent trials. So I've selected 12 cases that, and we're hoping that if you can give us this $5 million, that we will be able to utilize mediation through the federal court process and resolve. I mean, I'm hoping we'll resolve all of them, but certainly most of them, and make good faith offers of settlement in cases where we feel liability is clear and damages have been established.
I understand. Attorney Sousa, if I may, would you be kind enough, if you have the ability, because I'm kind of curious. I mean, I'm hearing what you guys are saying, but I am concerned. I think we are all concerned. I mean, for God's sakes, at what point do we say enough is enough? I'm thinking of $11 million this fiscal year alone, if we approve this $5 million. And this is in police-related misconduct. That's a lot of money. We all know that. I already used that money for schools, for lower taxes, for a whole bunch of other things. And so could you, if possible, either you or Lindsay, whoever has access, I really would like to know how much are we spending yearly, because I don't think we got that information, on certain lawsuits in the last, just let's go back 5 years. I really would like to know that if at all possible.
So it varies significantly year to year, Counselor. And
yeah, that's fine. If I could, I really would like to know how much are we looking at, because again, I go back to my first point. I kind of feel like you're asking us to trust you. And you know, I'm sorry, if you're asking me to vote for $5 million, I need to ask some questions because this is not my money, it's the people's money. And I take that seriously. And I know, to echo some of the comments, most of the cops are decent cops. I know them, I've been on the streets with them, but Jesus Christ, when do we say enough is enough? And so, you know, I still haven't made up my mind how I'm going to vote on this, to be honest with you. But I will ask Madam Chair, if possible, whether it be through Attorney D'Souza or the finance team, to go back 5 years and let us know how much we have spent yearly on settling the police misconduct.
I can probably have that in time for the regular meeting, Counselor, because I have compiled that before.
Yeah.
If you would indulge me in just one final point, though,
without objection.
It's certainly not that we all don't think that there's a point where this is a lot of money, but it's not as if we don't settle them, the liability goes away. In fact, I would suggest our exposure, if we don't settle them, is going to be far greater. Unfortunately, on some of these cases, I don't know what a jury will do with them, except to say, I know they're not going to say nothing bad happened. So once we know that, we have to factor that into how we evaluate the claims.
Thank you, Attorney. I look forward to the information, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Certainly.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions or comments? All right, next item. 1 minute, let me get back to it. Next item, supplemental budget increase in state aid, $3,860,083.
Thank you, counselors. So this was actually an increase in the final state aid budget, which affected the school department's budget. And this is in order, just accepting that additional funding.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, next item. Bond authorization for roads and sidewalks, $3,100,000.
Just looking to see if anyone from DPW is here. They'll be at the meeting at 7. So this is a $3.1 million bond authorization for road and sidewalk work. There are a couple projects outlined by DPW that will be included in this, and the additional funding will be for ongoing street and sidewalk work.
Councilor Ramos?
Yeah, I was just curious as to what the additional road and sidewalk work were going to be, but I'm assuming that's probably a question for someone from the DPW.
Do you mean the specific projects that are definitely going to be covered, or the additional ones?
Yes, or the specific projects, what
Okay.
specific private roads are going to be covered?
So the specific ones are outlined in the CAFO cert that's included in the order. Let me see here. I mean, they can be discussed tonight, but it's upgrades to Wilbraham Road, a broken pipe for flood system upgrades at Laurel Street, storm drain and manhole replacement at St. Louis Avenue. Those are the 3 identified specific projects. And then the remainder of the bond, which is about $2 million, will be for sidewalk, roadway, and private way construction. I don't know the specifics on those.
Yeah, those were the ones that I was asking about.
Okay.
So I'll ask the question again at the regular meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Allen?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I was just verifying that that is over and above our normal annual allocation, this money.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Bond authorization, forestry operations, $1,091,005.
Good evening, counselors, and my apologies for missing the earlier items. Had an internet issue. This is the grant that we discussed and you approved at the last meeting in September. We're very proud of receiving this MVP grant, and this will be the first part of really the city answering climate change. And interesting, today that was announced in Britain, they did a story and a study on oak trees and how much more carbon they can absorb. And we're actually doing a similar study on the oak trees in Blunt Park. So forestry will be playing a key part over the next 50 years on climate change.
How much is this for salaries, Pat?
This is not salaries. It's to actually construct a state-of-the-art operation center. Currently, we operate out of an 1890 building in Forest Park. So this will allow us to store equipment and be prepared to respond to storms.
Okay. Oh, okay, it's for a building. Okay, thank you. Bond authorization for $1 million for police vehicles.
Thank you, counselors. So I believe the last time we were here, it was maybe last year or the year before, for an additional $1 million bond authorization for police vehicles. So the state contract actually just expired on the 30th, a couple days ago. So I wasn't able to get updated quotes in time for the meeting, but we're planning on buying about 10 marked and 10 unmarked and outfitted police vehicles with this funding.
All right, any questions? Seeing none, bond authorization for water shop pond dam 1 million.
Yes, so this is the city's match for the NDRC funding, and this is specific to the Water Shop Dam Improvement Project. It's to make upgrades, resilient upgrades, and structure upgrades to the Water Shop's dam and control panel.
Okay. Any questions?
Yes, please, Tracy.
Sure, Council.
Thanks. Lindsay, what was the grant that we received that we were matching?
The National Disaster and Resiliency Competition Grant, the NDRC grant, the $17 million that the city received 4 years ago.
So what's going for the dam is a part of that 17 million?
Correct.
You know, approximately $1 million, 2 million, 3 million, anything?
Yeah, let me see exactly. The breakdown is 4.98 and DRC funding and $1 million for a city match.
So it's a $6 million project.
It is. It also includes solar at Brookings School, so it's kind of two parts.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Pat, when will the work on the dam start, and what's the anticipated completion date?
The work has started. Oh, sorry, Lindsay.
Oh, go ahead, Pat. Thank you.
The work has started, and Pete Garvey is hopeful we might putting the water back in sometime in late April. So I think we'll know better in the next 2 months. But everything's on schedule, and Capital Asset is overseeing the project.
Perfect. Thank you, Pat. Unexpended bond proceeds to police headquarter upgrades, $945,178.27 to Pearl Street.
Okay, so I'll start the explanation of this saying that these are unexpended bond proceeds for the body worn camera project. We actually had a surplus bond because we were able to shift some funding around between the general fund, the grant, and this bond money. And we're able to shift this money over to upgrades needed at Pearl Street.
So we requested additional funds to make improvements to Pearl Street. It's roughly a 1960s building. It's one of our older municipal buildings that haven't received a lot of upgrades. So this will be for flooring, improved working conditions in the different office areas where detectives work and so forth, improved women's locker room facilities, hopefully, and just general upgrades to improve the overall environment under COVID conditions while our staff and the police officers and civilian workers are working in that building. It's a lot of it's original, and it's time and long overdue to start making repairs to this building.
All right. Any questions from counselors? We got one more item, and it is 6:30, so it's bills of a prior year to various departments, $8,055.48.
Bills for services rendered in the previous fiscal year. There's a couple for TJO, there's a couple for assessors, and there's one for the mayor's office for a State House news service subscription.
Any questions? Oh, thank you, Council President Williams said there's no public speak out, but I was trying to still get us done by 6:30. So we made it, guys. Any questions or comments? All right. I don't think we're going to accept the entire financial subcommittee agenda as is. So some things have to go to committee and some things need further discussion. So I'm just going to ask for a motion to end the meeting.
Motion made to end the meeting.
And then second.
Second.
And so moved. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time and patience.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.